What is up, team? And welcome back to the Technical Foul Podcast. You're here for our weekly football weekend preview show. No Sanders again today. He has to work women's basketball. So it's just me and JP holding down the fort today. And with that being said, how are you doing today, JP?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I've ranked my top 25. Screw me. No, I'm doing good. I'm ready for the weekend. Who are you in
I'm
the
going to
live
go with
chat?
it Sanders.
Okay.
That's probably the best guess.
Um,
But I can't confirm that. So
I would assume, given that she hasn't answered my text, that it's not her. I got the blessing of the parents
Congrats.
yesterday. So
it's a big one.
I am set to propose on the 22nd.
Fi.
In 9 days, I guess, at this point. So,
Yeah.
can't wait.
That's very exciting.
That's been the big news of the week.
As it should be. Yeah, I don't know what else you really could have led off with there, especially, considering tough loss for state basketball, so you couldn't even necessarily lead with that. Disappointing game for sure. And now all the state fans are freaking out, which that's classic. I didn't rank mine either because I just forgot because,
Yeah.
we didn't do it Sunday, and so, it just slipped my mind.
No one has a ballot.
So we're just not doing it for today's show.
Okay.
We're
Heard.
skipping the People's Poll. We'll go straight into the Mississippi State preview and then roll on with our other game previews.
Yeah.
And hit NFL, then get to your best bets. Looking for a bounce back week there.
I can't wait.
We need a bounce back week there. We've needed a bounce. Yeah.
On that Iowa State game.
Yeah.
So, of course, our fan base is panicking. The Iowa State fan base feels like they should have lost, and they feel like they got lucky.
I didn't watch. The game was on ESPN, so I wasn't watching.
If they had played that game 10 times, it would be dead even. 5 both ways.
Gotcha.
They're really scared of Hubbard, as they should be.
Who isn't?
How well we shot the 3, how well we played, and fought at least defensively. It was just the fact that we turned it over. I think it was 25 times. Hubbard had 7 turnovers.
And he won't have 7 turnovers. I do think a lot of the turnover issues is going to be because Epps didn't travel with the team.
Yes.
And he's someone that's kind of supposed to be a secondary creator for the team.
Certainly, he's supposed to be our secondary scorer.
Yeah, secondary scorer. So when Hubbard's not in the game, or even when Hubbard is in the game, and then Epps isn't there, you're asking a lot of people to have to go try and score that aren't normally going to do that and have the ball in their hands that aren't normally going to be like that. And so, shocker that you turn the ball over a lot.
That's why the turnovers did not help. And of course, I think defensively, you just have to be a little bit better there.
Sure.
We're going to have to be really defensively sound all year because we don't have the scoring that we did last year. If we had Keyshawn Murphy, I think it'd be a different story.
Sure.
We could play like we did last year, but
That's very
we don't.
fair. It is really funny, though. Tucker's talking about in the chat. The fire, it's time to fire Chris Jans because he's not the answer. Even though this is not at all a historical basketball school, he's had one of the better starts to his career of any state basketball coach. Not that I'm a state basketball historian, but you had your great success in the early 90s or whatever with the Final Four run. But besides that,
there was that era and then the Rick Stansbury era,
Yeah.
and that's been it.
So let's not even just tap the brakes on that. Let's slam on the brakes.
The fact
with
that we're in the I remember growing up as a kid that me and my father were we celebrated and we were really happy, and I went as far as to fill out a bracket just as big as the normal bracket when state made the NIT. So that kind of tells you where state
Sure.
basketball was the decade or so before Chris Jans. Not good whatsoever. And he's made the tournament 3 straight times with a really poor offensive team the first year, and then with the help of Josh Hubbard and the team that he's put together the last 2 years, recruiting is up. The team doesn't look like it's going to perform, at least at this point. We don't know that yet.
It's very early, and also
Can't draw conclusions at this moment.
I feel like the issue is for college basketball casuals, Ohio State has been on the rise the past 3-4 years, so that's a really good program right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not really tapped into college basketball, you probably it'd be almost like losing to Arizona right now or Duke right now. I'm not going to say they're quite on the same level as Duke, but like you're losing to one of the top tier programs in college basketball right now.
Absolutely.
But since it's Iowa State and not Duke, the name isn't there for a college basketball casual to be like, oh, okay, yeah, we lost. And it was a bad game. We didn't play well, but we lost to a really good team. And it gets to show us where we need to improve and grow. But, I mean, I don't think Iowa State's historically good at basketball either. But Otzelberg or whatever the coach's name is done a great job there. Shall we transition to football?
Yes, we can.
On the campus of Mississippi State. And it's a huge game. You can put up the graphic whenever you get the chance.
Oh, yep.
The Mississippi State Bulldogs, the last road test of the season for them as they get a bye after this, and then Ole Miss comes to town. So this really is the twilight of the schedule, the home stretch. You go on the road to Missouri, and Missouri's coming off a very disappointing and devastating loss to A&M. So I'm going to be interested to see how they bounce back. But with them being at home, them being a good team, they're favored by 6.5 against the Dogs. Early thoughts on this game, JP? What are you looking at?
Well, I want to see, first off, when we are given the introduction into the game on the network, one, are we going to have another terrible SEC network showing from the crew, from the commentating booth, from the camera?
Hopefully the night game's a little better.
I'd hope so. I think it's Cole Kublik and like the main SEC network guy and Jordan Palmer would be my guess. They've been doing the night games,
And that's a solid squad.
all
I'm
season.
happy with that.
Yes, absolutely. So I would hope it's better. But not only that, I want to see, does Missouri have a crowd after two devastating home losses to Alabama and to A&M? Do they still show up for a Mississippi State game as a 6-3 football team? I really am curious to see how that'll go. It's their last home game of the year. It is senior night. So it's, some energy there, but I'm really curious to see if they fill out that place like they have against A&M and like they have against Alabama, because if they have, then they've got the home field advantage, I think, in this game. But if it's like the Arkansas game, the State Arkansas game, that is, then I think it becomes a moot point, and it's an advantage, of course, towards the Bulldogs.
100%. Right now, just hopped on SeatGeek real quick. I'm not the greatest indicator, but I could get 2 tickets for $29 a piece in the lower section, the top of the lower section.
Okay.
So it could end up being packed, but obviously the vibes and excitement around this game are probably not as high,
Absolutely.
which makes perfect sense.
So that's the first thing I'm looking for. Weather is not going to be a factor, which is kind of surprising for a late November game in Missouri. It's going to be 63 degrees. It's going to be nice weather. It's not going to be a cold day. So offensively, we will still be able to throw the football around if it's Shapen or Camario, and that's what'll be the next biggest story for much of Bulldog fans and for anyone watching the game, even on the Mizzou sideline, who plays at quarterback. Right now, Shapen's probable. Brian Haydad of Thunder and Lightning thinks that Shapen is likely going to play on Saturday. I would tell you I think it's up in the air because Lebby said in his press conference on Monday that Shapen would have to be, quote, fully healthy to play on Saturday. And I'm not sure. Obviously, probable is not fully healthy at this point in the week, which was yesterday on Wednesday in that injury report. And how much progress does he make towards Saturday? I don't know. I'd hope that, maybe Camario's taking the first team reps all week. And why wouldn't you just go ahead and lean into that? Give him that experience. Let him get his first start. I don't think there's any risk in it. But Lebby wants to win games, and he thinks Shapen is his best option towards winning games. And I'm not going to disagree with him because that's what he believes, and he fully believes it. Other injuries, though, Albert Reese is probable. He needs to start, especially at right tackle for us against this Mizzou defensive line. Isaac Smith will not play. He's out. Jet Jefferson, a corner as well, will not play. Losing Isaac's huge. Still will have the 2 safeties in Brylan Lanier, and Jerron Manning will survive. Targeting call at the end of the first half against Georgia.
Couldn't have timed it any better.
Huge. That's one of my first thoughts as soon as it happened was, okay, well, at least he doesn't miss the first half this week Because if Isaac, who had already gotten hurt at that point in the ball game, can't play next week, then we need at least two of those safeties in Lanier and Jerron Manning to both play well. Another crazy thing on the injury report, Bo Pribula is doubtful. That's just crazy. It's diabolical. That's even possible.
That feels like mind games to me a little bit, being like, we'll toss him on doubtful. He won't play, but just get State thinking a little bit.
I wonder how much of a statement that is of how lucky he got with that injury, but also, like, is it potentially, like, do they not trust Zollers that much that they feel like they need to try and get Bo out there? The fact that he's even doubtful, I think, says a lot towards that, because Zollers did not play well last week against Texas A&M, had some bright moments. Who doesn't? Who plays well against Texas A&M? I will say
not very many.
Not very many. Only C.J. Carr has really played well against them this
Green
year.
had a
and
good
Taylon
day.
Green. But Taylon Green's the GOAT, and C.J. Carr was at home. And C.J. Carr had turnovers in that game as well, critical ones. Bo Pribula, doubtful. I would be surprised if he plays, of course, given what we saw 2 or 3 weeks ago against Vandy. Mizzou is a top 20 defense in pretty much every single category. They're 9th against the pass at 162 per game, 18th against the run at 104 per game. That is the first one you want to look at right there is can State move the football? Can State put together the drives that they need to score points? Can State avoid 3 and outs? Can State avoid 3rd and long with the stoutness in the Missouri defense? That is critical to this game because on the other side of the ball, Hutzler's defense has lost all steam in the last 3 games and really the last 2 games in one quarter, giving up 45, 35, and 41 the last 3 games. And I don't even want to talk about the total yards that were given up in those 3 games. Slowing down the run game is imperative because of Ahmad Hardy and Jamal Roberts, who had both 109 plus against A&M last week in a game where the script kind of should flip to passing the football. They still got what they needed in the running game and still got to 110 yards. So we'll look for Hutzler's defense to try and slow down the run first. But I think for me the biggest key for State, and this will be a key for a lot of teams this week in the games that we preview, is forcing turnovers. State is plus
100%
in the turnover margin. I think it's huge that they forced Matt Zollers, the true freshman, to turn the football over. I'd be surprised if Ahmad Hardy, Jamal Roberts turn it over. They haven't had fumble problems this year. But our DBs have been really, really good at forcing and getting interceptions, and I would love to see that again against Mizzou. I think we have to win the turnover battle to win the game, meaning Shapen's got to protect the ball if he plays, and Camario as well. He's had errant throws. He's had throws that probably could have been picked in a few moments if the DB was kind of expecting him to overthrow the receiver by 5 yards.
Yeah.
Which you may see that this week with what Camario was put on tape. I think turnover battle is a huge part to this game. Regardless of whether Shapen starts or not, Camario has to get series in this game, multiple series in this game, because Mizzou is so stout against the pass and so stout against the run. When you introduce the quarterback run game with Camario, that's just an extra number in the blocking. It makes it tougher at least to stop the run. And we need to be in favorable positions all game because, like Lebby said, we are not good enough when we false start on first down. It's 1st and 15. When we false started twice in the Georgia game, it was 1st and 15. At the end of those little series of now 15 yards, we had 3rd and 5, which we would have picked up a first down. It had been a normal 1st and 10. We had 4th and 5, meaning we would have picked up the first down on 3rd down. That's 2 first downs. It's continuations of the series. So we've got to avoid penalties. That's been a big problem for us all year. But I think we got to introduce Camario in the run game and use him in that facet. Jack, you have any keys to this one?
Yeah, I got a couple. You said a ton of great things. Once again, as always, I agree with basically everything you said. I think the defense for State has to turn it around and play closer to how they did to start the season. Because with how good that Missouri defense is, I think if you give up 30-plus points on the road at Mizzou, I don't see the offense scoring and keeping up. Hey, crazier things have happened, but just with how good that pass rush is that they have and the issues y'all have had at tackle, they don't really get beat on the inside run. A&M wore them down and started hitting big runs at the end, but that first half we got almost nothing in the interior run. So I think the defense is going to have to step up and play a good game to get out of Missouri with the win, which on that front, it helps if they play Matt Zollers. He just clearly a freshman, clearly not quite ready. Y'all won't have the benefit that A&M does of being able to get pressure kind of whenever we want to because y'all don't have that pass rush. Y'all don't really run the same blitz packages Elko does. But y'all are typically pretty good in coverage. Kelly Jones force a pick. Y'all are pretty opportunistic that way, so it'll just play out in a different way in terms of stopping Zollers. It'll be more coverage than pass rush based. But I think the defense is going to have to turn it around, and I'm just a little worried about that because the injuries in depth, I think people are just slowly getting more and more banged up, and the state talent of the entire roster is improved. The depth isn't really fully there yet.
Agreed.
So as Tucker said in the chat, it's a huge spot for Tony Mitchell, replacing Isaac Smith. Very talented guy out of high school, has flashed some this season, but how's he look Isaac Smith is kind of the guy on defense, or one of the guys on defense.
Mm-hmm.
How do you look replacing one of the guys? It's a huge test. But guys like him have to step up to get the defense back on the right track.
Agreed. Going into picking this game now, State has lost 1 in a row. Missouri has lost 2 in a row, so something has got to give. For me, the real key to this game, joking-wise, is the spread. State and wins this year, the closing spread was 5.5 points or less, meaning plus 5.5 towards the Bulldogs, or were favored. And our losses, it's been 7.5 or more. The spread opened at 5.5. It is currently dead in the middle of those two numbers at 6.5. So go bet on Mizzou to cover 6.5, and we can get the spread down to 5.5. And then you can either win money or we win the football game. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
That's the only way
I'm a big
we can
fan
get
of
this
win-wins.
done. I personally am going to pick Mississippi State. Shocker. I think we'll do enough offensively, and I think we're going to have, regardless of who starts the better quarterback in this game, and I think that'll ultimately end up making the difference. I have to believe that our defense shows up enough that against Matt Zollers, we can force interceptions, force turnovers, and as long as we are stout in the run game, which was a problem last week, of course.
Visions of Nate Frazier,
and even
running
worse,
free.
the second half against Arizona State as well. If we commit fully to the run, I think we have the playmakers at corner on the outside to defend their receivers and Kevin Coleman and others. So I put 7 in the box. I don't care what you have to do, Hutzler. Stop Jamal Roberts. Stop Ahmad Hardy. And then go find a way to get a win. I hope
Agreed.
Camario gets to start because he'll get a ton more grace. The fan base needs that too. If Shapen starts and we lose, I can't even imagine what it's going to feel like for the next 2 weeks before the Egg Bowl. If Camario starts and we lose, I don't think anyone will care. I'll care.
Yeah.
But I don't think
The
it'll
fan base
matter.
would be like, we'll get him in the Egg Bowl.
I think it may turn into it may turn towards Hutzler finally at the end of the season, especially if they score a bunch of points.
Yeah.
I'm going to take State as 6.5 point dogs to cover, of course, and I'll take State to win. And I'll take them to win a 28-24 ball game in Columbia, Missouri on Saturday night.
Yeah. I'm so interested to see how Missouri bounces back from kind of, hey, maybe we could make the playoffs. We've only lost 2 games. And then you lose, and Drinkwitz talks about how devastated they are. And then he pivots in the midweek presser, and it's like, hey, guys, it's not all about the college football playoffs. That the mindset of it's playoff or bust has really hurt college football as a whole. And then also Tucker mentioned in the chat, rumors of him going other places. How does that factor in? How locked in is his team going to be Saturday? I agree completely. Just sell out to stop the run. And if Zollers beats you, all right, I guess. That hurts, but you just got to give him props at that point. But if you go in there and you let Hardy and Roberts run all over you, it's GG's. But I'll take State to cover. I don't feel confident at all about a win on the road with the way the defense has been playing, and who knows what's going to happen at quarterback. But I'll take State to cover for the vibes. Give my support to the Bulldogs any way I can. Sanders isn't here, but Sanders also has Mississippi State covering, which is not a shocker at all. I think he's had State covering the every game, and he's the only one to have State covering every game because you had Alcorn State covering, which
I said Northern Illinois covering.
oh, tough. And State's really good against the spread. If you want to look at numbers and follow trends.
Yeah.
Last week, we don't talk about that one in terms of against the spread, but in general. Shall we move on?
Yes. Which one do you want to go to?
Let's do OU at Bama. Well, I know we still have our Bama fan in the chat.
Okay.
He can give input if he wants to, if he's nervous at this game. Because as Oklahoma travels down to Alabama, and Alabama looks to get revenge for last season's disappointing loss against Oklahoma, it kind of feels like this is a good matchup for Oklahoma. I'm going to be honest with the way Alabama struggled to run the ball and how good Oklahoma's front seven is. And then you also throw in the piece of Mateer's a runner. Alabama struggled with running quarterbacks. That being said, while I feel like it's a good matchup for Oklahoma, they're favored by 6.5. It says 4.5 on the graphic, but it jumped to 6.5. Let me double check that real quick. With me and Sanders,
it's 6.5 right now.
We're looking right before the show. But it's up to 6.5. So despite me thinking it's a good matchup, Bama's still favored by 6.5, and there's good reason for that too. But your thoughts on this game, JP?
One of the big things, like you highlighted on, is front seven of Oklahoma and that defense really against Bama's offense, which has been dynamic. Bama has the 114th best rush offense, 112 yards per game. OU is the second best rush defense, only giving up 78 a game. So don't expect Bama to run the ball well, meaning they're going to have to pass well on first and second down to avoid the third and longs against this front seven all night. That being said, Bama is excellent at passing. They're 12th in the country at 291 a game. And OU is a top 35 at 34, giving up just 200 yards per game through the air. That both sides of the ball, it's going to be a question of which quarterback delivers, which offense is able to find key plays, because both of these defenses, they are really good, especially talent-wise, and then they are really good at just forcing havoc, whether it's in the run game
For sure.
or it's through the air as well. Bama is the 8th best pass defense. They're 164 yards per game that they have allowed. They've played Tennessee, by the way, and Tennessee is the second best pass offense in the country. So to still have the 8th after playing Tennessee is just excellent. OU, their offense has not been great. It's been middle of the pack for both, 77 and 79th in rushing passing. Bama's top 50 against the run, and like I said, 8th against the pass. One of the things you have to see is John Mateer not who he was anymore now post thumb surgery, which has been the case. He hasn't thrown for 225 yards since the Auburn game. And in the Auburn game and every game prior, he threw for 270 yards plus. I don't expect that to change now. Honestly, if he does that, it would shock me.
Proud mean they would win, I would say.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say out front, I will be at this game. So I'm really excited to see John Mateer in person, see Ty Simpson in person, and see this game this weekend. And if he does throw the ball through the air, it's going to be really interesting how that crowd reacts if they're able to hit deep passing plays down the field to Deion Burks and Satanga and Kanik. They're tied in as well. But I don't expect it to change. If that happens, I will be shocked, and I think OU, like you said, Jack, has a really good chance in this game because Mateer, like I said, has not thrown for 225. Plus, since the Auburn game, he's averaging, I think it's like 182 passing yards per game since the Texas game, and that includes the Texas game. I'm curious to see, does OU have some run game, though, that can really help them? Do they throw Mateer into the run game a lot like they did against Tennessee? That was something I asked for, something that they did.
And I think they'll do it again. This
Yes.
is essentially a playoff game.
It's
so.
another, like you said, another playoff game. It's a playoff elimination game. Mateer said they know what's on the line here. They know what they have to go do, so I think they'll use Mateer a ton. running the football. They've had, Xavier Robinson the past 2 games has had 100 yards on the ground. Big part of that is he's had big pops in both games. He had a 65-yard rush and a 43-yard rush the last 2 games, that being against South Carolina and Tennessee. Big pops on the ground, a big explosive plays, which will help this OU offense get into the red zone, which is one of my big keys to this game. I have 2. Red zone game will be a factor. OU is number 1 in the nation in red zone scoring on all 28 trips there this season. That's field goal or touchdown. They want touchdowns, of course, against this Bama offense, but they score every time they're there in the red zone this season. Bama is number 8 in red zone defense this season in terms of scoring percentage. Really key matchup to the game right there. Does Oklahoma end up with 3 or 7? Will tell a huge story because you don't trust that offense to continue to go down the field like you would Alabama, meaning they've got to get down there and they've got to score 7 every single time. My other key to the game is turnover battle. Bama is forcing 1.9 turnovers per game. OU just 0.9. Bama hasn't lost a turnover battle once this season, and they've tied it just twice. Somehow, some way, OU has to win the turnover battle. You have to find some way to do that with their defense and Mateer protecting the football. If they win the turnover battle, that I think might just be the padlock stat of the game, because it will just keep that momentum towards OU. And it's again another thing that's completely unexpected. So it's a huge part to this game. Does Mateer protect the football against a defense that almost forces 2 a game? And does Simpson turn it over against a defense that only forces 1 a game?
It does really feel like the padlock stat. In Oklahoma's biggest SEC games, Tennessee, they were +1 turnover margin. Hey, they won that one. They were -3 against Texas and lost, and they were -2 against Ole Miss and lost.
Yeah.
So it really does feel like they have to win it. And I think Bama has turned the ball over 7 times this year, and that's kind of the Ty Simpson effect of taking command of the offense. He's done a great job of not putting the ball in harm's way. I think he still just has the 1 pick on the season against Vandy. He has been strip sacked a couple times, which don't let R. Mason Thomas get around that edge, or I think there's high odds of that happening. But
well, I'm not going to answer your call right now, Harris, but I will give you my phone number, not over air.
Yeah, everyone text JP real quick. But no. And then you mentioned Xavier Robinson having back-to-back 100-yard games, and in the game before that, Torrey Blaylock rushed for 100 for Oklahoma. And that's kind of my real question is that recent run game success real? Because I had an Oklahoma fan coming at me and basically being like, we're running the ball better. Because I've been pretty skeptical of that rushing attack all year. And it has been the past 3 games. He rushed for 171 against South Carolina, 136 against Ole Miss, and 192 against Tennessee, which progress is progress, but those are 3 bottom 5 rush defenses in the SEC. And Alabama's only allowing 104 over that same rushing yards per game over that same time frame. So I'm interested to see if it was, hey, we really have found something there, using Torrey Blaylock a little more, Xavier Robinson, getting those explosive runs, or is it we just played some weaker competition? I'm getting attacked by a fly. What the heck? Interesting to see how that plays out. Last thing I want to add, you mentioned the explosive runs. That's kind of what Oklahoma's offense has had to thrive on, is explosives, even in the passing game. They have 2 touchdown drives of 70 yards or more and 8 plays or more in SEC play, both against South Carolina. They are not going to just march down the field on you.
Yeah.
So, once again, don't turn the ball over Alabama, because that's one way they don't have to march, is if they force turnovers. And then also don't give up chunk plays. Don't let Xavier Robinson pop you for a 50-yard touchdown rush. Don't let Satania burn you over the top.
Don't get beat on the fake substitution.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Watch out for any tricks. Much easier said than done, obviously, because Oklahoma's been pretty consistent at generating explosive offensive plays. But that's really what you got to look out for, is make them march on you, because I don't think they'll be able to, especially not on the road.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't think OU is fake punted yet this year. This feels like the game to bring it out.
Sure.
Trickery, I think, is it could be a huge factor for OU, because, like you said, just 2 drives where they've gone down the field tantalizingly, 8 plays, 75 yards. Trick plays, flea flickers, quarterback throwbacks, which that would be sick. John Mateer catching a touchdown pass. I would love
He
to see
seems like a QB that would catch a touchdown pass.
the
so.
Philly special towards OU.
That would quiet the crowd. Also, I need to knock on some wood because I've been dissing South Carolina's defense, and that's who A&M plays this weekend.
Yes.
So I don't want to be like, it's so easy to march down the field on South Carolina and then watch my team not manage to do that Sunday. So knocking on wood for that.
All right, well, we can get into picking this game.
Yeah, let's do
Bama
it.
has won 17 straight home games in Bryant-Denny at Nick Saban Field. Of course, Kalen DeBoer has been terrific at home his entire career. But Kalen DeBoer is consistently in close games that they just end up winning down the stretch. Bama's won 8 in a row this season since the Florida State game, which I went back and watched the Florida State game, like highlights. It's crazy how much can change in 9 weeks from a perspective in this sport.
For real.
To think where Florida State was going to be, and now they should have already fired Mike Norvell, but they may not fire him until after this weekend. And here Bama is pretty much, some people think they might be the best team in the country. Bama's won 8 in a row. Oklahoma has won 1 in a row, so something has got to give here. Again, I will be at this game. OU a 4.5 or 6.5 point dog. Apologies again to the graphic. I'm all over OU in the 6.5. Personally, I'll be cheering on the Sooners in this game. I'm not like Sanders. I'm not weak. I won't be saying "Roll Tide" while I'm there this weekend
With an Alabama fan, correct?
with an Alabama fan. I won't simp in that way. I feel no pressure to do so. I will be in state gear anyway, so I'm not going to say Roll Tide in state gear. That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
Give me OU to shock Alabama in this game. I think defensively they've got everything they need to be in this game, and I think I trust Mateer to hit some deep shots down the field, to use his legs in really critical moments. And I think at some point DeBoer is going to lose a game at home at Alabama, and this just feels like the one that it's going to be, honestly. I just have a feeling on this one. Call it a seer prediction.
Okay.
I think OU wins, of course, and covers, of course. So give me Boomer Sooner to defeat the Tide and force Tucker and his heart to be in a really tough spot when Bama has to go to Jordan Hare to make the playoff.
Heart
in 2
palpitations
weeks.
for sure. I wonder how that would, if Bama loses, I wonder who becomes second in the SEC. Like,
I
because they would still
laid
just have
it
the
out.
one conference loss. So I wonder.
Second in the ACC would still be. Well, actually, no. I'm pretty sure it'd be Old Piss, if I'm not mistaken.
Interesting. Yeah, because you can't do head-to-heads because
These were the 4 ways Georgia made it. So Georgia had to win out, and then they would need OU to beat Bama and the School of North to win out.
so Georgia would be in the driver's seat.
Georgia would be in the driver's seat, yes,
Okay.
because School of North would be favored to win out, and you don't need Texas to beat A&M
Yeah.
in that scenario at all. So it
Cool.
would be Georgia in the driver's seat if Bama loses.
Assuming Georgia also wins on Saturday because they have a tough matchup themselves, so we'll talk
Absolutely.
about it in a minute. I also have OU covering this game. I think Alabama's going to win, so I'm not with you on OU winning. DeBoer loves himself a close game, and OU's defense profiles to make this a very close game. I just don't know if they'll get the turnovers needed to win. I trust Ty Simpson more than I trust Mateer at this point in the season. So give me Oklahoma to cover, but I think Alabama will win. And unsurprisingly, even though he's not here, the man that has said Roll Tide unironically before picks Alabama to cover the 6.5. He basically is the Alabama fan on this podcast. It's crazy. And I love that he's not here to defend himself. He has no idea. He's even getting slandered. So, shall we move on?
Yes, we can. Do you want to continue in
Let's just finish.
sequential order or the SEC?
Let's just finish the SEC.
All right,
I
let's do
just
it.
was hinting at it, but a huge showdown of kind of old SEC versus new SEC. And Texas is looking for revenge for their couple losses last year to Georgia, but they have to go down to Athens to do so for a night game where Georgia's a 6.5 point favorite. I'm going to go ahead and roll through some of my notes to kick this off.
Yeah, go ahead.
'cause just really interesting stuff. I was on Discord with some friends a couple nights ago, and it got started because I was looking at Marcel Reed's ADOT from the Missouri game, which, first off, is an aside, but take a guess at what his ADOT was for the Missouri game, or average depth of target.
4 yards.
2.6
Okay.
was his ADOT, which is ridiculously low.
Yes.
Like, that is insane. Tells you how conservative we played it. And then one of my friends asked me who had the highest ADOT in some game this year, so I was scrolling back. Arch Manning had a whopping 20.6 ADOT against Florida, the game they lost in the Swamp. However, since then, it's dialed way back.
Yeah.
His ADOT is 6.5, very reasonable since then. And he's thrown the 5th most screens since that game in that time frame. So kind of spamming screens has been the offense, letting guys make plays after the catch, which they have done. Ryan Wingo, for example, has caught 11 screens for 7 missed tackles and has 21 yards per reception on screens. Interestingly enough, though, in that same time frame, Gunnar Stockton has thrown the 3rd most screens.
Mhm.
And this season, Zachary Branch has caught 31 passes behind the line of scrimmage, forced 12 missed tackles, and has about 8 yards per reception on screens. So since the Florida game, I think Texas had a bit of a come-to-Jesus moment about what they were doing. Hey, how can we look to fix this? And they have become a screen-heavy offense, a short pass-heavy offense. Not at all a bad thing. You have the weapons to do so. You have the guys to make people miss. We saw it when they came to Starkville. We saw it a ton in the Vandy game, especially early on. And he's still taking deep shots, too. There's just maybe a little less intermediate stuff. It's a lot of screens and deep shots.
Yeah.
It's working very well. Kind of what Georgia has done this season, too. So it kind of feels like two battles of simpler offenses. And therefore, it comes to my biggest question, which is which defense is going to stay fundamentally sound, is going to not miss tackles on the edge, and keep these screens from going, 3 yards. Oops, he slips a tackle. Now it's 50 yards. Which defense is going to show up and not let that happen?
Yeah,
So,
you would think on paper that would be Texas at this point in the season. They, of course,
Sure.
show that on paper for the most part. I'm really excited for this game because this has quickly turned into another version of, or a different version, I should say, of what Georgia-Alabama was, where it is a rivalry where one team owns the other and the other team loses in fashions that you wouldn't think are possible.
yeah.
I go back to Georgia-Alabama. Of course, you have Tua in the national championship game, replacing Jalen Hurts in the second half, and then throws the game-winning touchdown in overtime. The following year, Georgia loses in an identical fashion to the same team in the same building with the quarterbacks flipped. Tua gets hurt. Jalen Hurts comes in and leads a comeback. And, of course, you have the Milroe game last year with Ryan Williams against Carson Beck. Just numerous heartbreaks for Georgia. I remember another one. The SEC championship, I think it was 2011 or 2010. Aaron Murray completes a pass short of the goal line in the Georgia Dome with 12 seconds left. They have no timeouts. They can't get another playoff. Georgia would have beat Bama. Bama ends up going on to win the national championship. This has quickly turned into that with only 2 matchups last year since Texas has joined the SEC. Last year, if you don't recall, which I didn't recall until I went back and watched the game again. If you don't remember the game in Austin, then I do not recall how insane it was. And first off, Georgia comes out guns blazing defensively. Carson Beck throws 2 picks on his first 2 drives of the game. Arch Manning replaces Quinn Ewers to end the first half. He gets nothing done. Dan Orlovsky came on the broadcast because he was in the studio and he was like, I think it's time for Steve Sarkisian to start Arch Manning. And then Arch Manning comes in immediately after that, which was hilarious that was in the highlight package. Another Dan Orlovsky miss is, Arch Manning's the most talented quarterback prospect ever.
Yeah.
Miss. Doesn't end up working out. And then you get in the second half. Quinn Ewers leads a touchdown drive to start the first half. And then a catastrophic moment in the game when Carson Beck throws a pick to Jahdae Barron. Jahdae Barron returns it. On the field, they throw the flag. They call pass interference. Steve Sarkisian can't believe it. Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit, everyone else can't believe it because there was no pass interference, clearly. But they've already called it. The ball is already spotted. Georgia's offense is already on the field, and the Texas student section throws beer bottles and everything onto the field. We have a conference somehow between the referees, and they reverse a flag that had already been called. Unbelievable. Just absolutely unbelievable. It turns the game entirely because Texas scores on the very next play, and all of a sudden they are down by one possession. And Carson Beck, who had 2 picks in the game at that point, has to drive down the field. He ends up driving all the way down the field. They respond, and they end up winning the game 30-15. And then in the SEC championship, you have Carson Beck getting hurt again at the end of the first half, if I'm not mistaken, with the shoulder injury. Gunnar Stockton comes in and leads a comeback for Georgia. And this is how that rivalry's become. So I can't wait to see another chapter in that on Saturday. That just makes me feel so much more confident for Georgia, even though on paper you think Texas's defense has the chance to bow up.
Yeah.
I think Georgia actually in this game feels like they have something to prove more than Texas does.
Sure.
This feels way much more like a Georgia revenge game, even though they won both matchups last year, than it does a Texas one, because they did not play well offensively at all in either game against Texas last year. And with the way their offense has been humming this year, I think they're going to go out there going to try to put up a ton of points.
Yeah.
And I think they'll find some success to do that. Gunnar Stockton, I saw him last week in person when he was here in Starkville. The dude can make some big-time throws. He's really turning into a great field general, as all great Georgia quarterbacks do. They're just field generals. They haven't had the big talented guy. Arch Manning, they've made a big story about that all week, is Arch Manning and how close he was to committing to Georgia. I guess I don't remember it that much.
Me either.
I don't think I really care either, because he would just be what Gunnar Stockton is right now. A
Sure.
field general. That would be all he would be for Georgia.
It's all they need. So
That's really all they need with the way that they play. The big thing is, I've been talking about it for a month and a half. When is Georgia going to show their classic Georgia defensive game? And I think this is the one of just an unbelievable opportunity to do that against a Texas offense that is one-dimensional for the most part. They can't run the ball, but they can get a screen to their receivers in space and use that to cook. I think they're going to bow up on that. I think we're going to have a jump ball pick 6 in this game on a screen pass.
sure.
I really think that's a potential for it. I think Kirby Smart's going to diagnose those things. They're not going to fall, I would hope at least, for the same play to start the game.
I hope Texas tries it.
That Texas ran against State to Ryan Wingo that went all the way down. And then Vanderbilt, they ran it against Vanderbilt, went all the way down for a touchdown. I hope they try it, because I think Georgia will just pop them
Sure.
immediately, and they'll be ready for that.
I think we'll know if that does. Like, we'll know the outcome of the game if that happens. Because if they throw that and the Georgia guy pops him, and he comes up like a man possessed, screaming and pounding on his chest, and it's like, okay, well, you can tell Kirby got the boys ready to play. He convinced them in the locker room that nobody believes in them, that, we've been talked down on all year. To their defense, it's a little more true than it has been in years past. There's been a lot of, this isn't the old Georgia. This is not the same dominant Georgia. They're still really good, but they have cracks. And so I'm sure he's in that locker room, practice all week and team meetings all week. He'll be there pregame going, they don't think we can get stops and get after the passer like we used to. They don't think we're to be feared like we used to be. And I think they'll come out motivated and try and prove that. Whether they do or not, time will tell. I think this for Arch, I talked a little about their recent success and how that's come. He 100% has gotten better. It's not just been a full offensive reset and completely take it out of his hands. He 100% has improved. He's making more throws. I think he's seeing things better. Most importantly, though, he's playing more confident, and that's huge for a quarterback. But this game is kind of a how much better have you really got? Because I don't expect Ryan Wingo to have 21 yards per screen in this game, and them to run well in this game. He's going to actually have to make some big time throws and big time reads. He's been better, but how much better is he? Gotten good enough to go into Georgia and do that? I don't know. Anything else? We ready to pick this game?
Yeah, I really want to. It's to think that Texas even has this opportunity.
Yeah.
With the way the season has gone is insane. And they honestly still, there's a route where they lose this game and then beat an undefeated A&M and still have a chance to make the playoff.
They're the most likely 9-3 team.
Yes, absolutely, I agree. But I wonder how much Sark relishes in that opportunity and how much that team feeds off of that, and it goes out there and takes it at Georgia, because like we have said, Georgia is a potentially vulnerable team. They've been in a lot of one-possession games this year. They've already lost at Sanford Stadium to Alabama. Now, Alabama had to play essentially a perfect half and then survive the second half.
Yeah.
Texas is going to, I think, have to put together a perfect offensive half, at least one in this game, if not 1.5, 2.
Sure.
Because I think Georgia will still find a way to score some points here, and as long as they protect the football against this Texas defense, that's where I'm concerned. Is can Texas's offense outscore Georgia's? And the biggest thing I think you have to wonder is, if you throw everything away on paper and you just think about the coaches and the brands, who do you trust more in this moment? Right now, you trust Georgia 1,000 times more than you trust that Longhorn and Texas, and of course Steve Sarkisian. They have not been great in these games. Sark is 2-6 against top 8 opponents at Texas.
Yeah,
2-6. That's not good enough for that Texas brand. That Texas is not back necessarily, like Sam Ehlinger is saying, or said, I guess, pre-COVID, long time ago. The last time Texas beat Georgia.
Yeah.
In the Cotton Bowl. I trust Georgia a ton, immensely in this game. They're favored by 6.5. I think it's a perfect spread to pick Georgia as well. I think they'll do enough offensively. I don't trust Arch Manning in that offense in Sanford Stadium. Again, while Bama did win there, Georgia, what was it, 37 or something in a row? I don't think that was the number. It was a large number.
High 20s, I think.
Yeah, that they had won at home in a row. That doesn't mean they're going to just lose 2, I think, all of a sudden.
And it's been proven for Georgia, like for Kirby Smart's Georgia, Bama's the outlier. Like, Bama can do to them what no one else can do. So just because Bama went and did it, I'm not looking at that and being like, oh, because Bama did it, now we can go do it. Like, that's not how that's worked.
I'm going to take Georgia. I think they're going to be highly motivated with how the performances went last year. And then Kirby Smart and that team, clearly they've shown that. I watched Kirby's press conference and another player's press conference, Bolden, I think the defensive.
KJ Bolden?
Yeah, KJ Bolden, the defensive back. They talked about that game last year, and they both agreed, and we're on the same page of, we didn't beat that team, or we haven't beaten Texas. This team hasn't beaten Texas.
Yeah, Kirby Smart's such a sicko, man.
Absolutely.
I don't know how he does it.
So I'm going to take Georgia to win and cover in Sanford Stadium.
I'm going to take Georgia as well. I'm a little worried that which it does matter, don't get me wrong, but I saw the performance they put on against the Bulldogs, and am choosing to believe they're going to build on that with, we ran the ball really well. Nate Frazier looked fantastic, and I'm hoping that we don't get to after the Texas game and go, well, obviously Texas and State are not the same, so just because they did that to State, I should have known they weren't going to do that to Texas. And I'm not saying they're going to beat Texas. What was the final score of that game? 21, something like that? How much did State lose by last week?
41-21, I think.
Yeah, 20 points. Like, I'm not saying Texas is going to lose by 3 scores. But I did really like what I saw from Georgia last week at the same time, and just confident, playing so fast, more physical, more aggressive, and I think they can roll that into this game and do the same thing here. So I'll take Georgia to cover. It is a perfect spread, though.
Yeah, 6.5.
Lots of 6.5s up there right now. All 3 games we've picked so far, actually.
Well, now we can move on. Let's go to your team.
Of course.
And then we can go to
Cavaliers.
our team. But we'll start with Virginia and Duke.
What a game, man. It does feel a little weird to be previewing this and not be basketball, because typically when UVA and Duke face off against each other,
Such a great point.
and there's ACC championship aspirations on the line, you go, oh, that's Tony Bennett and Coach K. I know neither of them are the coaches at their respective basketball schools anymore, or respective schools. But still, that's what you're expecting. Kyle Guy versus, I don't even know, Zion Williamson. They weren't even in college at the same time, but whatever. But no, this is on the gridiron, and it matters a crap ton for these 2 schools, but also the rest of the ACC, as we're trying to figure out how in the world this ACC championship game race is going to shake up and how the ACC is going to fit into the larger college football playoff picture. With all that being said, Virginia goes to Duke, where Duke is a 5.5-point favorite. Right off rip, I don't think it being at Duke matters that much. They've shown time and time again they don't show up at all for football.
Yep.
Basketball school. But
And we're
they
in
are
basketball season too.
exactly.
I need to go see where their basketball team is playing. Maybe they're playing at the same time.
Yes, a good
and they
point.
won't be there.
But Duke is favored by 5.5. It looks like Chandler Morris is going to play, which is huge for Virginia.
Yep.
And once again, there's the massive, massive game. Your initial thoughts, JP?
So Duke, if you don't know, lost to UConn last week.
Yep.
They host Indiana State. So the basketball team host Indiana State this weekend on Friday night. So maybe they'll be still in town the following day for the Virginia Duke game. I doubt it.
They probably view that game against Indiana State as more important than this game against Virginia in football.
Absolutely. I don't even have to tell you why Duke lost last week to UConn. If you know anything about this team, you know the answer. It's one word: turnovers. They turned it over 3 times last week. UConn turned it over 0. Now, full credit to Duke's defense. They actually kind of kept them in the game with the turnovers. Post the 2 Darian Mensah picks, which were both inside of Duke's own 30-yard line. They only gave up 2 field goals. But that was the difference in the game. UConn ends up winning by 3, 34-37. They got enough going offensively, and the 2 field goals made the difference. Duke, this team is fully reliant on turnover battle. This is diabolical in itself. Games that they win this year, they have no turnovers. They haven't won a game this year where they've turned the ball over. But also defensively, they are forcing, on average, 3 turnovers per game. Games that they lose, which they've lost 4 this year, they have 1 forced turnover per game, and they are averaging 2.5 turnovers per game, losing the turnover battle on average by 1.5 per game. They have lost the turnover battle by 5 in a game this year. They've lost it by 4. They have lost it by 3. This team, if they turn the ball over, it's over. If they don't turn it over, they will force turnovers, and they will beat you in that way because their offense is really, really dynamic. Darian Mensah, I wouldn't say he has no chance of being some kind of draft pick this year. He can also return next year if he wanted to and transfer somewhere. I would advise that personally. But he still has the numbers. And it's not necessarily him that's throwing these games and having all these turnovers. He had 2 last week against UConn, and he holds accountability for that. But he's averaging 310 passing yards per game. He has a 70% completion percentage, and he has 24 touchdowns and 4 picks this year through the air. Great numbers for a 5-4 Duke team and a 5-4 Duke Darian Mensah quarterback. What he's showing on tape as well, he can make some really incredible throws with his arm. It is just a question of, for them, it's been fumbles have been such a catastrophic. Their fumbles and this year, protecting the football when it's in their hands already, has been catastrophic this year. On the flip side, again, it's turnovers for Virginia. Chandler Morris, I think, is going to play as well. He's had 3 games this year with turnovers. Those 3 games, they're 1 loss to NC State, a double overtime victory over Florida State, and an overtime victory over North Carolina. Those are Virginia's games where Chandler Morris is turning the ball over, and those are the games that they are losing or in really close one. Of course, they had the loss last week. Who did they lose to last week again?
Wake Forest.
That's right, Wake. But that was with Chandler Morris out. So with Chandler Morris playing, when he turns the ball over, they're in really close games down the stretch. Of course, North Carolina had a chance for a 2-point conversion to win that game. Florida State game was right down to the wire, double overtime. And then the loss to NC State, a non-conference loss. Again, don't ask about it. That, for me, I don't even have to break down anything more because I think that just tells the story of the game.
There's no point in breaking down anything else, really,
Agreed.
because this game is going to be hectic. It's going to be a frenzy. I expect a ton of points to be scored because the Duke defense is not good. especially their pass defense, which is a surprise of the season
128th
in a lot of
in the
ways.
country.
But it is not good, and their offense is fantastic. Mensa has the arm talent when I think I saw the stat, and I'm not the huge just PFF grades guy, but he has like a 91 grade when throwing outside the numbers.
That's incredible.
Go balls, comebacks, all that crap. Like, just an elite arm, which can get him into trouble sometimes because he tries to make some throws that maybe aren't there. And for UVA, it's not like their pass defense is great either. They do have 10 picks on the season. They can be opportunistic. Once again, feeds right into the hands of this being a crazy chaos game.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I kind of am waiting for, and we may not get it because they've had so many chances to do so and it's not happened, but like does this Duke offense just have a high ceiling game where they finally don't turn the football over in a high-profile game and just like drop 50 and just beat the doors off some team? Because it could happen because they have so many weapons and their QB is so talented. But once again, it's like at this point, I don't really expect that to happen because there's a lot of data points that suggest that won't be what happens.
Yeah, why should you? Because
Correct.
in the big ones where they have turned it over have been against Illinois, who was 11th in the country at the time, Tulane, who's been kind of fighting for the Group of 5 bid, but they have too many losses at this point. Georgia Tech, who is right now the favorite to win the ACC, and then UConn, which you would think that's a bad one, but UConn is actually one of the better teams in the independent right now.
Yeah.
Of course, there's only 2 teams in the independent, but they're a good program.
One of the
and they're on
better
the uprising.
One of the better non-Power 4 teams.
Agreed.
And also it was at UConn as well, which is crazy that it was at UConn, but it is what it is.
So for me, picking this game, I look at those games, the 4 biggest games of their year, Illinois, Tulane, Georgia Tech, and UConn, which I guess I would maybe argue the Clemson game has more importance. In those games, that's where they turn the ball over. So why should I trust them to not turn the ball over against Virginia this weekend? And especially with it being at home, Duke has no crowd. If you haven't watched a Duke game this year, they have hosted the 11th and 12th ranked team in the country this year. There was nobody in the stadium.
There probably was more people in the school library at the time than there was in the stadium.
It is crazy. So there will be no crowd still this weekend. Even with a Friday night basketball game the day before, I will be shocked if that stadium is 50% full. And because of that, with Duke's turnovers, troubles, and big games, I would take Virginia to win and, of course, to cover the 5.5 points. I think the Cavaliers will get it done and continue their ACC championship bid and stop this Duke doomsday scenario
So the ACC needs UVA to win.
that everyone is highlighted on this week. I've seen literally every single network and every single person possible talk about the doomsday scenario, which is completely possible where Duke wins the ACC but doesn't make the playoff because JMU and USF's resume are better.
Yeah.
I think Virginia wins, puts that to bay. I'll take Virginia to win and cover and win the turnover battle, which would be the key.
Yeah. And I mean, hey, if you believe in karma, which I don't, but if you do, this kind of feels like UVA deserves to win. Just with the way you kind of get screwed out of a win last week, your starting quarterback goes down due to a bad hit when he's sliding, concussed, has to come out of the game. Backup quarterback can't get anything going. Wake Forest actually has a pretty good defense, so it's just it's a brutal spot to be in, and you end up losing. So it just kind of feels like they deserve the bounce back. But I agree. I've trusted Duke a couple times in our pick'em to win these big games, and they have burned me bad. So I'm not going to pick them again, which means, of course, they'll win this one. But no, go Cavaliers. Go get a win on the road. Even if you don't win, I feel pretty good about them covering the 5.5. So give me UVA. And Sanders also has UVA. So we are all on the same page there as we have been 2 other times. And that gets us to our secondary podcast team. JP especially, his secondary team. And we're going to the Big 12 for our final college football preview. As TCU and the Horned Frogs, a team I was very high on in the preseason if you've been following the show, goes to BYU as BYU is looking to bounce back from a letdown in Lubbock last weekend. And BYU is a 4.5-point favorite in this matchup. Should be a good game. Should be a very exciting game. It's a late kickoff, 9:15 p.m. Your thoughts on this game, JP?
I can't wait to see it in Provo. The late kickoff. Have lost just one home game in the last 2 seasons. The shocker last year when they were 9-0 and they lost to a Kansas team. The spread was very similar. I think it was 4.5 points versus, well, this one's 4.5 as well. It was right there. It was a very close spread. Kansas was a losing team at the time, so it was even more shocking. But that is why Vegas knows what they're doing. They know their power rankings. TCU of 4.5-point dogs. And TCU this year, the story and their losses have been, again, to beat the dead horse, it's been turnovers. Josh Hoover, specifically, as a quarterback, who has been really, really dynamic through the air. Everyone, of course, remembers him tearing apart Bill Belichick in his first game as the North Carolina head coach on Monday night to start the year. But in TCU's 3 losses this year, one thing has been true, and this is a constant. Josh Hoover has turned the ball over through the air with 2 or more interceptions in every time TCU has lost. That's 3 losses. 2 last week against Iowa State and a 3-point loss at home. 2 against Kansas State and a 13-point loss on the road. And 2 against Arizona State and a 3-point loss on the road. Take away the picks. Those are all 1-possession and 2-possession games. Maybe that flips towards TCU, and maybe TCU is right up here with Texas Tech and BYU in the college football playoff rankings. But that's been the story. It's been Josh Hoover turning the ball over, and BYU will turn you over. They have a +7 turnover margin this year. In their big ones, in their 3 big games so far, they were +2 in the turnover margin against Utah. They were +4 in the turnover margin against Iowa State. And then last week against Texas Tech, they were -3. So I think, again, turnovers is such a huge part of this game. I really want to see how that goes. If you tell me that right now, I feel like I have a good look on how the game would go. For BYU, I want to see just competitive resolve. They were shut down offensively last week against Texas Tech. No other way to put that. Their defense fought a ton, forced 5 field goals in that game. They showed a ton of competitive resolve defensively. I thought personally, Jack doesn't agree, that they showed that they can compete with Texas Tech if they were to play again. They have to beat TCU if they want that opportunity, because Cincinnati is right there on their heels. Will play Cincinnati, and they could beat Cincinnati and still win that tiebreaker. But then you get in a 2-loss tiebreaker with other 2-loss Big 12 teams.
It's simpler to just go win this game.
Absolutely. They have to win this game at home, in Provo, at night. They have no option but to win this game. Although, with the way they were shut down offensively last week, BYU loves to run the football. They run it for 200 a game. TCU is the 35th best rush defense in the country. It is not top 3 like Texas Tech was. They gave up 120 yards to Texas Tech's, I think it's 84, give or take. So it's going to be another test for L.J. Martin and Bear Bachmeier and this BYU Cougar offensive line. And then on the opposite side, TCU can throw the ball through the air like Texas Tech did last week as well. Josh Hoover is throwing for 303 yards a game. That's 9th in the country. I really want to see how that goes.
Yeah, completely agree.
My last one before I get into picking it, but we can go to your keys, Jack.
Sure.
Penalties issue for TCU. State fans watching this, TCU is essentially Mississippi State when it comes to penalties. They are 107th in penalty yardage per game, 62.8. The Dogs have 63.2 penalty yards per game. So it's essentially the same kind of dynamic from a penalty perspective for TCU and Mississippi State, and it will play out like that. They have to avoid penalties on the road in Provo to continue moving the football down the field and scoring points. Jack, you got keys?
Yeah, you already touched on multiple of them. The picks are huge for Josh Hoover, and they largely come when he's under pressure. He's not the most mobile guy. So if you can make him feel the heat, get him off his spot, you're in good shape. Something BYU has struggled to do a little bit this season is get pressure. So look for them to blitz, try and find ways to generate pressure. Because if you let him sit back there clean, Jordan Dwyer, Eric McAllister, Manjack, they have so many weapons, and he's going to find them with ease. He'll pick you apart. That's when he'll hit the 300-plus passing yard mark, and it'll be a long day. So you got to find a way to get some pressure. And then for BYU, you got to be able to run the ball. You talked about how TCU's run defense has been pretty good. And it has. Interestingly enough, they're like a very consistent run defense. They kind of just give up a little over 100 rush yards to everybody. So if you're BYU, you don't really have to worry about them like shutting you down in the run game like Texas Tech did. You can still find some success. You're just probably not going to end up in a game where you run for 200 plus on them. That's what they won't let you do. But just find some moderate run game success. Put Bear in a bit of easier spots than he was in that Texas Tech game, which should be. The TCU defense is not the Texas Tech defense.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to worry about that. But yeah, just find a way to find some run game success. Get after Hoover a little bit. Turn him over a couple times. That's kind of the keys. I agree.
This will be a very fun game. It's the nightcap in Provo, but a very fun game to watch of dynamic receivers. Jack has already highlighted on Bo for TCU and Eric McAllister and Jordan Dwyer. Dwyer, if you remember, he's the one with the long hair that cooked North Carolina to start the year. Was just unstoppable in that game. But Eric McAllister had a game against SMU, who again beat Miami. This is a good SMU team, where he had 254 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. And he's had 100-plus receiving games on top of that. So they have 2 dynamic receivers, just like we do, BYU. We have Chase Roberts and we have Parker Kingston. I think that's kind of the game within the game. What receivers have the biggest effect on this game? Of course, LJ Martin, if he's the X factor, if he goes off and has 100-plus rushing yards, we should win this comfortably. But if it's not like that, like if it's like last week against Texas Tech, where we're slowed down in the run game and LJ Martin can't get going and Bear Bachmeier is forced to throw the ball, does Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston outplay Eric McAllister and Jordan Dwyer? I want to see. Or does Josh Hoover hand us the game by throwing a pick or two? I think that's the game within the game. Which pair of dynamic receivers wins the battle? And to go into picking it, BYU is a 4.5-point favorite. I'm going to pick BYU.
Sure.
No surprise there. I think they will win that. I'm really high, of course, on Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston. But Provo, night game, of course, the last night game they lost was to Kansas last year. We need to avoid the 2-game slide. Last year it happened with the Kansas game, and then they lost at Arizona State the week after. It's kind of flipped on its head this year, where
Sure.
it could be the loss to Texas Tech, the one that kind of maybe is expected, and then the loss kind of in a shocker to TCU. I think Kalani Sitake will have his guys ready. I think they'll win this game. But if we get into the second half, I've never been out there to Provo. I hope to go there and see a game one day, because the stadium is amazing with the mountain in the background.
Picturesque.
It is beautiful. How thin will that air be if we're in the second half and TCU is kind of right there and Josh Hoover is driving up and down the field? That is where it could get really interesting. Does BYU tighten up, and do they make a mistake in the fourth quarter? I don't think they will. I think they've shown competitive resolve all season long. They've responded when they needed to, and I think they will win and cover this Saturday in
Sure.
Provo.
Yeah, I agree. A Kalani Sitake team, I'm not really too worried about competitive resolve. I'm going to be honest. He drives a pretty steady, ship there. There's not crazy up and downs. Even this season, we thought it'd be a bit of a down year, and he says, "Nah, we good." That being said, I do like this TCU team a good bit. I know they have 3 losses, but I think they have a higher ceiling due to their passing attack. So I am going to take them to cover the 4.5. I think BYU can eke out a win. Could go either way, but I'm going to take them to cover the 4.5. Half because I think they definitely can, and they will, but also because time's dwindling, and I'm in the back of the pack, and if I don't pick TCU here, we have the exact same picks, and so I can't make up any ground.
Yes.
So give me TCU to cover here.
Sanders has BYU winning and covering as well. Sanders can tie me for the lead in the college football pick'em if one game flips, and that is the Alabama-OU game. Jack can also gain ground with this TCU-BYU game, and that is it for our college football predictions.
Yeah.
5 great games, and we're not even talking about game day, Notre Dame Pitt.
There's other good games for sure. This is a pretty good weekend, but the heavy hitters, just getting Alabama Oklahoma and Texas, Georgia, same week is huge.
It was very similar to what it was last year. We had Georgia, Texas at night, and we had Alabama went into Neyland and played at Tennessee.
Yeah.
They have delivered on these big SEC matchups every single weekend. That is what just is amazing about this conference.
Kind of what Kalen DeBoer does too in a vacuum is it's a good. He's gonna give you a show. I'll tell you that
Absolutely.
in a big game. I agree, Tucker. I would love to see a 2 group of 5 playoff, largely because I think that's unfortunately about the only way JMU gets in at this point,
Yeah.
and they deserve to get in my opinion. So if that's how it has to happen,
It may not
Let that happen.
feed for the common fan great matchups in that first round, but I don't care.
you're probably not going to get fantastic first-round
Agreed.
matchups anyway, so I don't really see why
We
it
didn't last year.
Yeah, I don't see why it matters too much. It is what it is. Shall we get on to the NFL?
Yeah, let's do it.
And we have some banger NFL matchups here as well. After a couple weeks of lesser matchups, we there's enough games. You're going to get good games every week, but there's some especially huge games to be excited about this week, as well as some depth. Now, we only do 3 games every week, so we won't necessarily see the depth in this preview, but I'm sure as we circle back around on Sunday to review the whole
Yeah.
weekend, we'll have a lot to talk about.
Oh, absolutely. Panthers, Falcons, the 2 dog ones. But Bucks, Bills, we're not even previewing. That's a huge game.
Yeah.
Bears, Vikings is a huge divisional game. Jameis Winston against the Packers.
Should be fun.
I can't wait for that. Justin Herbert versus Trevor Lawrence, a playoff rematch.
Have you seen like the playoff odds for that one?
I haven't.
It's just like in terms of,
It
playoff
flips a ton?
predictors, like the Jaguars with the win go from like 70%, and
Mm.
if they lose, they're like a 13% chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Chargers are up to a 90% if they win and a 45% if they lose. So just huge playoff implications in that game.
But we will start with Seattle and Los Angeles.
Yep, the NFC West matchup of Titans this year, to be honest. You have the fantastic passing attack of the Rams going up against the great defense of Seattle, and then that Seattle offense that has just been high-flying while also ground and pound at the same time faces that really good Rams front 7. The Rams are favored by 3.5 at home. Your thoughts on this game, JP?
Well, the first one is dynamic receiver play is going to be electric. Jackson Smith and Jigba is on pace for like Calvin Johnson numbers. He's been absolutely terrific. And then Puka Nacua, on the other hand, and Devontae Adams is just a really dynamic pair. I think this is the game where maybe you see Rashid Shaheed hit one over the top. So you're really looking at 2 dynamic duos in the passing game on both sides. Sam Darnold, Matthew Stafford. I really can't wait. One of the big ones is Seattle, ever since the Rams have moved to SoFi Stadium, have actually never done a good job at packing out SoFi Stadium, which is surprising since they're right there on the West Coast. I would argue Arizona's had a worse time, but Arizona has a terrible team.
Yeah,
They've had no reason
less
to.
likely to travel if you're going to go watch your team lose.
Seattle has had a team that's made the postseason with Geno Smith, just missed out on the postseason with Geno, and then this team. So I'm really curious to see, will they find that home field advantage that a lot of teams have found when they've gone to play the Rams. Of course, the Steelers had it against the Chargers earlier this year, but we've seen San Francisco do that against the Rams a ton. The Los Angeles fan base just doesn't really care enough about that Rams team, and they don't really care about any of the teams there. They're all delusional there. They're all big Dodgers fans, but couldn't name any Dodgers, or Lakers fans, but couldn't name any Lakers, stuff like that. I want to see, does Seattle travel well, because I think that could help them a ton in this game. Of course, Mike McDonald has been terrific on the road. I don't remember the stat anymore off the top of my head. I think he has 2 road losses ever in his 2 seasons as the head coach in Seattle. This is a critical game, I think, for Seattle. If they win this game, they control the division the rest of the way. Kind of duh. But to win this first one on the road, I think helps them so much, because then Los Angeles has to come to your place and win that game to even up that series.
You're putting all the pressure on Los Angeles in that situation.
Absolutely. So I really want to see how that goes. And then for Seattle's defense, does Mike McDonald have something for this Rams offense? Matthew Stafford is putting up MVP-level numbers. He has been unbelievable offensively. They've really gotten whatever they wanted. With all of that being said, I would argue they have two weapons, maybe. Really two weapons that will consistently get to you. But Kyron Williams in the run game and Blake Corum and then Tyler Higbee aren't X factors.
They're fine.
They're
They get
fine
the job
players.
done, but not something that scares you per se.
So I want to see does Devon Weatherspoon and Tariq Woolen and Nick Emanuari, the rookie from South Carolina, do they play well in the pass game to any degree against Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, and Devontae Adams? Because if they do, I think personally they have a advantage with the depth of their defense versus Tyler Higbee and Blake Corum and Kyron Williams. And because of that, I think they'd have an advantage against that Stafford offense. But if they can't slow down Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, it's a moot point. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Los Angeles and Sean McVay are going to go down and score points the entire game.
Sure.
I really think that's a huge part to this game without even looking on the other side of Sam Darnold in this game.
Yeah, which I'll look to the other side real quick before you pick it. I'm very nervous for the Rams corners going into
Absolutely.
this game. Emmanuel Forbes
Mhm.
and
He's
company.
got a pick in two
He
back-to-back
does.
games.
He does, and maybe gets a pick here. But even just thinking back to the Eagles game when it was like this could be a game where AJ Brown plays well, and that's one of his few good performances of the season. They just don't have great size, and so if they're ever going to end up matched up, hopefully not, but an Austin Barner or what's your guy Arroyo, if they end up having to go up
Elijah
against
Arroyo.
a tight end, how does that go? Or even just no one's really guarding JSN right now, so I don't really care. It's not like I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't care if it's Emmanuel Forbes. I don't care if it's Sauce Gardner. I don't care if it's give me another corner.
Pat Surtain,
Pat Surtain.
Jalen Ramsey.
Maybe Pat Surtain.
Maybe.
That'd be a fun matchup.
Yeah.
But regardless, I don't really care about that. But just across the board, I think the Seattle passing attack could really feast in this game, and we could have been a high-scoring matchup on the West Coast. Because also it's in SoFi. There's zero weather ramifications.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect football conditions because you're inside. I would argue that's not really perfect football conditions.
If they had a grass field, I'd be fine with it.
Sure. That's a good point. Great point, actually.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to see a bit of an offensive shootout here. But I agree with you, looking to pick this game. I like the Seahawks defense more to get a couple stops than I do, I think, the Rams defense to get a couple stops. So I'm going to take the Seahawks to cover the 3.5.
Mm-hmm. This, like you said, you'd like to see a lot of points. This is the second highest point total for the weekend. With Seattle and Los Angeles at 48.5. The Heights is 49.5. With the Cowboys and Raiders, who are both terrible defensively, so they expect a shootout in Las Vegas on Monday night. 48.5. That's a really high point spread for an NFL game. I agree. I think the key. I've had Seattle on top of my pyramid for 4 weeks running. I think they're the best team in football. But up to this week, I now have the Rams right there on tier 2, right behind them, nipping at their butt. And so we could potentially see a flip with how this game goes.
Sure.
That being said, I really like the matchup of Seattle's receivers, tight ends against anyone the Rams throw out there in the secondary. I really like Jackson Smith and Jigba against anyone, but Rashid Shaheed and Torrey Horton, and then the two tight ends and A.J. Barner and Elijah Arroyo to really get what they want. The only way I think the Rams win this game is if they get after the passer. If Jared Verse gets after Sam Darnold. If they sack Darnold 3 times, I think maybe we see a flip. Or if they force pressures and we see the turnovers where Darnold has turned it over under pressure. That, I think, is the only way the Rams win this game, because I think Seattle is actually going to have a more potent offense than the Rams. So give me Seattle to win and, of course, cover the 3.5 points. Introducing a new thing this week, and it'll be part of our my bet segment. I have gone as far to make what the spread would be off of my pyramid. And the spread for this game would be the Rams minus half a point. So it would be a pick'em, essentially. I have a 3-point difference on that. I will take Seattle to cover the 3.5 as well.
Sure. Well, let's roll on to our next matchup. And I guess I'm going to see which one you choose.
We'll go to the first one before the nightcap.
Cool. I like it. another big divisional matchup. The Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe they're 5-4.
Yep.
Roll and go play at Denver, who I have been on the record in calling frauds, despite being 8-2. Vegas seems to somewhat agree with me, as they have Kansas City at 3.5-point favorites on the road. Your thoughts on this game, JP?
It's the division. Point blank, it's the division. Kansas City loses this game, it gets dicey for them making the postseason. If they win this game, they are one loss behind the Denver Broncos, and they play again, if I'm not mistaken, week 17. Yeah, week 17.
Yeah.
The week on Christmas Day on Prime Video, hosting Denver. And then they can take the division lead right there. So this decides everything for the AFC West. Will Kansas City lose the AFC West for the first time since Peyton Manning? For the first time in Mahomes' entire career, will he have to be a 5, 7, or 6 seed and have to go on the road multiple times in the postseason, which, of course, he's been perfect on the road in the postseason, 2-0. It's such a huge, huge factor. And so this game almost becomes a Super Bowl. And I think a lot of people, specifically like Nick Wright, I want to point on, he's tried to like deflect all week and turn this into all the pressures on Denver. All of the pressure in the world, I think, is on Kansas City in this game. They have to prove offensively, can they do it against Denver's defense? They have to go win in Denver. They are 3 wins behind the Denver Broncos. And they're the ones that are behind the 8 ball. And Kansas City still has games that they could potentially lose down the stretch. They still have to play the Colts next week. They still have to go to Dallas on Thanksgiving. I think that's a scary matchup potentially for them. They still play the Texans. They still play the Chargers again. And, of course, Denver again. They lose this game. They're 5-5. We're looking at, I think, games that they'll all be favored in. But you could lose 3 of these games in Colts, Cowboys, Texans, Chargers, Broncos. You expect the wins against the Titans and the Raiders. But those are very losable games. We might be looking at 9-8. The only thing that's going to prevent that is if Jacksonville goes on a run, and then it won't even matter how many games they win because of the head-to-head. If they end up being tied, and it'll be Jacksonville in as the 7th seed and Kansas City not. But I think all the pressure's on Kansas City. That being said, Andy Reid off of a bye, Patrick Mahomes off of a bye. There is no one that owns a divisional opponent in NFL history more than Patrick Mahomes. He's 13-1 against the Denver Broncos.
Diabolical.
His one loss, the game where he had the quarterback sneak, hurt his knee, had to come out.
Yeah.
That was his only loss ever
Crazy.
against the Denver Broncos. So he has owned Denver more than Brady owned Buffalo, more than I'm trying to think of other ones. More than Drew Brees owned the Carolina Panthers. I don't know how much he owned them, but I'll just go ahead and throw that out there.
Call.
Screw the Panthers. He owns the Denver Broncos, and he plays them really well. Denver, of course, beat Kansas City technically last year, but Carson Wentz started that game, and they won convincingly. I think all the pressure's on Kansas City. I think they're going to feel the pressure too. I really think we're going to have a tremendous environment in Denver, and if Sean Payton can just find 24 points, can he find that would be 4 offensive drives where you have 3 touchdowns and a field goal out of Bo Nix in that offense, which has been terrible, point blank, for multiple weeks, except in the fourth quarter for whatever reason, then I don't think Kansas City can win this game, because I think Denver's defense is really going to give them trouble and really slow them down. I'm scared to start Rashee Rice this weekend in fantasy.
Sure.
That speaks to how much I think that defense plays really, really well.
Yeah.
And I think all the pressure's on Kansas City in this game, and I can't wait.
Yeah, first thing I wrote for Kansas City, feels like must-win for the Chiefs. I will say, I do think the Broncos are feeling some pressure just with the way their offense has performed for their offense to do something. And of note, J.K. Dobbins isn't going to play in this matchup, so it's going to probably be some more R.J. Harvey.
Yeah.
I don't know how that affects their offense. It's not like the offense has been great anyway. But it is a thing of, I think you said 24 is a fair point
Mhm.
because you won 18-15 and then 10-7. I think if you score in the teens, I feel confident that Kansas City is going to be able to outscore that. I don't think
Yeah.
Kansas City is going to go in and put up crazy points on the Denver defense because I agree it's very scary. But I'm going to trust Mahomes and Kelsey and Rashee Rice and Andy Reid to score, more than 7,
Mhm.
like the Raiders last week, or 15, like the Jets the week before.
Yeah.
You got to find a way, Bo Nix being the U, Sean Payton being the U, to score around 24. I think I can agree with that. In terms of picking it, I'm not going to trust them to. I've been so vocal about how much I dislike this team, and so genuinely because I don't trust you to, but also because I don't want you to, I'm going to pick the Chiefs to cover the 3.5 and get a huge road win.
Denver's won 10 in a row at home. What's the one way that Mahomes has lost? It's specifically in the Super Bowl, but a ton throughout his career. Pressure at the quarterback, him getting sacked. Denver is on a historic route. They may break the sacks record, and they also are on pace to break the sack differential record. I think Denver gets after Kansas City. It is Josh Simmons' first game back after missing it's either 3 or 4 games. He had a family
4.
issue. And then Jawan Taylor got hurt pre-bye. Did he get healthy over the bye? That's your right tackle and left tackle. You have major questions. I think Denver's pass rush gets after Kansas City. My pyramid would have this spread at Kansas City minus 1.5. And so I'll take Denver to cover the 3.5. But I'm going to take Kansas City to win. I think Kansas City finds some way, because they just always do. They always beat the Broncos. Last year it was the blocked field goal at the end. That was the difference.
Yep.
I think Kansas City just finds some way to win this game. But I'll take Denver to cover.
I like
3.5 points up there in Mile High Stadium. And we'll have Kansas City at 6-4 and Denver at 8-3. But give me Denver to cover.
Sure. And that gets us on to our last preview we're going to do.
Oh, my bad.
No, you chill.
Bang.
And that is the Detroit Lions, who are on the road at the Philadelphia Eagles, where the Eagles are 2.5-point favorites. And the first thing I'm looking at for this matchup is, hey, how does the Eagles offense respond? Because there's, shocker, been a ton in the media about it. Nick Sirianni was like, I'm getting tired of asking questions about it. A.J. Brown's on Jenky Rondo's stream basically saying, if you have me in fantasy, trade me, and I hate this.
Doubled down on that back-to-back days and press conferences.
Yep, basically being like, the offense is terrible and we're not doing our job, and kind of like, maybe I could help you out if you could get me the ball some more. That being said, I feel like the couple times this season when it feels like all hope is lost for the Eagles offense, they put up a pretty good game. And so can they answer that again? And then they'll put up that good game and we'll go, look, they still got it. And then 3 weeks later we'll be here going, oh man, things looking pretty bad for that offense. But I'm looking for that. Can their offense respond and have a good game? And then if Dan Campbell calls plays again, how does that go against a bigger test? Because calling plays against the Commanders is like playing Madden on rookie mode. This is a bit more of a challenge. So I'm curious how that goes. But your thoughts on this game, JP?
Yeah, I forgot. I can't remember who said it, but whatever coach said, if you've ever played Madden before, you've called plays.
Yeah, who did say that? Oh, gosh.
I can't recall who said that. I think it was in the NFL.
I'll look it up while you talk.
But Dan Campbell, I guess I don't think he's played Madden before, but he did not. It would not have been any different, like Jack is saying, if he had just started playing Madden and was calling plays. Dan Campbell play calling last week. The Lions scored 44 points. They had 546 total yards. Dynamic offensively. Just like no question about it. Now, that being said, their offense wasn't really an issue. There was consistency questions, of course. They would have drives that would just obviously go down the field and score touchdowns, but they had a ton of 3-and-outs. They don't have as many 3-and-outs, though, as Philly. Philly leads the league in 3-and-out percentage in terms of their drives.
Kevin Stefanski said it.
Kevin Stefanski, okay. Of the Browns head coach, yes. Philly leads the league in 3-and-out percentage this year. So they have been either boom or bust. They have gone down the field and scored and find ways to done that, but in large part, because they refuse to block for Saquon Barkley for whatever reason, and an offensive line that has not changed, I think, except for one player in Mekhi Becton, who is now a Charger this year. They have changed one player on that offensive line, and Saquon has gone from will he break the rushing record to is Saquon okay? Which I hate that narrative because it's not been on him. Saquon's chilling.
Well, I'm sure he's not okay. He's probably feeling a little
Yeah,
like
he's-
A.J. Brown is right now in terms of, man, I'm pissed off that I'm not getting my production and this offensive line is not doing its job.
Agreed. I hope he doesn't respond that way. But Saquon is essentially getting Ashton Genty level blocking, and no one is really highlighting that. And that is a large part of why they have that 3-and-out percentage. And 3-and-outs is not something you want to do against this Detroit team because you go 3-and-out, you waste the least amount of clock possible. That means more drives for this Detroit offense. You give this Detroit offense 10 drives in a game, they're going to score 5 times. That's looking at like 31 points. You can't do that, and you can't win that game in Philly with the way your offense is playing if you're going to give up 31 to Detroit. So they've got to be able to control the ball, control the clock, run the ball with Saquon, run the ball with Jalen as well. Obviously, everyone's curious, do they actually give A.J. Brown the ball? That being said, I'm not sure it even matters because he got the ball in key moments in other games like the Minnesota game and then comes out later that week and he said, using me but not using me in a Instagram story post with a black screen and just white letters and a game where he had 2 touchdowns, including the game winner. I don't know. So I don't know if it even matters how they handle that.
Sure.
I really want to see, though, how does the crowd handle that? Is the crowd...
Whose side are they on?
I'm really curious.
That's
don't
a great
know.
question, yeah.
I wish, because there's no Philly, like, what's it called? Message board like there is in
Yeah.
college football. You don't have that for the Eagles, at least not one that I can find. So I don't know how Philly fans feel about A.J. Brown in this mess. So I'm really curious, do they cheer when he catches the ball? Do they boo? Obviously, they're going to boo for 3-and-outs in this game, but is it really booing
It's Philly fans. I mean,
for A.J. Brown? I'm really curious to see how it goes. So it feels like mojo-wise, everything is leaning towards Detroit. And yet, I break this down kind of similarly to Texas and Georgia. In this spot, in this moment, in a one-game scenario, who do I trust more? Somehow, still, I trust Philly more than I trust the Detroit Lions. I've seen inconsistency from that offense in Detroit. On the road, I've seen inconsistency in primetime games. I've seen inconsistency either 2 most recent primetime games against Tampa Bay and Kansas City. There's great offensive performance, but then really bad for much of the game. Can they answer that in Philly and Lincoln Financial? I don't know. And so I still trust Philly because even if they can't get what they want in the run game, when the game is mattered, middle 8, the first drive of the game, into the game, fourth quarter, Jalen Hurts has been terrific on 3rd and long, finding receivers down the field, whether that's A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith. He's been terrific. And so I just trust Philly more in a spot like this, even with the chaos that has kind of ensued this week with A.J. Brown and what he did on the Madden stream and what he has doubled down with in the media. Brother, where was this, a week ago? What was it, a week ago the trade deadline was? Where was this? I don't know. Why did they not trade him at the trade deadline? Because apparently Jalen Waddle Buffalo was prepared to offer a first-round pick for Jalen Waddle.
they did. They just didn't offer the right one.
And A.J. Brown, I think, would have gone for a first-round pick as well, so why wouldn't Philly have just taken a first-round pick? I don't know.
I think it's because as much as he can play in key moments, he still will make a play. So it's kind of nice to have. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I going into picking this game, again, like I said, while I have questions and a team that I feel like should have no more questions, and the coaching decisions and the team vibes with A.J. Brown, I trust Philly more in the spot than I do Detroit. And with the spread at only 2.5, I really like Philly to cover and win, cover the 3.5 or the 2.5 points this weekend. For reference, my spread on the pyramid would be Philly -6.5. I don't know where I would lean there, but because of that, take Philly to cover 2.5
Sure.
easily.
I'm gonna take Detroit. The offense has been a little consistent. I'm gonna trust Texas A&M legend Dan Campbell and calling plays to get 24, 27 points yet again. I think the offense in this game really can be a little inconsistent, and they can still win because of how off the Eagles' offense has been. Now, of course, they'll probably prove me wrong, but look at my record. I'm 7-23 in the NFL Pick'em, so don't listen to me at all. I make the NFL picks and follow along in the NFL segments because I'm on the podcast and for vibes. Listen to JP when it comes to more knowledgeable NFL opinions. Anyway, give me Detroit to cover the 2.5, win by a field goal on the road. Be kind of a huge feather in the cap of Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
And more questions will surround the Eagles, and I'm not too concerned. They'll probably just bounce back at a later date. Shall we get on to your best bets?
Let's do it. We're kind of in a tough spot here because, even me personally, I'll go ahead and be honest. I don't think we should call it best bets anymore.
Sure.
I think we've lost that title. We were the last 3 weeks picking more games per week, every week, because we thought volume shooting, the more shots you get up, the more chances you have to hit. It worked for 2 weeks, and then we picked 9 games last week, and we went 2-7.
There's some tough beats in there, I will say.
Some really tough beats. KSU had a good lead in the second half. New Mexico State backdoor covered. I think JMU won by 11, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Memphis, for whatever reason, did not care that they made the playoff and decided to lose to Tulane on Friday night.
Indiana goes to overtime, so they can only win by 6, and they do so. The Carolina bet isn't even really a best bet. That was you hedging your emotional bet.
Absolutely.
Just tough.
Michael Van Buren doesn't care enough to score points, and so LSU doesn't cover plus 9.5. And then shout out to 9, J.J. McCarthy, for not performing against Baltimore.
Yeah.
All that being said, I have no one to blame but myself, and here we are sitting at 18-30-1 at this point in the season. So I've gone to a new way of doing this. I'm going to bank off of my pyramid.
Sure.
I've gone back all the way to week 2 when we had the first pyramid, and I have recorded what the spread would be. Now, this is a very, very basic calculation, but what the spread would be based off of my power ratings for those games, and then had the picks with all of those games. Where, for instance, let's say Philly this weekend is favored by 2.5 points. On my pyramid, I had Philly on the second tier, and I had Detroit on the fourth tier. With the calculation there, I would have had the spread for Philly -6.5, meaning there's a 4-point difference between Philly -2.5 and Philly 6.5. So I would take Philly -2.5. And that's what I'm going to do. That's my first bet of the weekend. I'm going to take Philly -2.5 points. It's the biggest point differential between spreads that I have this weekend based off of the pyramid.
Sure.
If you want to know how the pyramid's doing, in the last 4 weeks, the pyramid is 22-14. So +8.
We like that a lot.
Before that, when it was week 6 through week 2, 5 weeks, it was 29-39.
But the pyramid has settled a lot.
There were a lot more teams at that point. I haven't figured out how to put a point number on a team in the graveyard yet. And so the teams that have gotten the graveyard, I avoided away from there being a spread there. So we're still tinkering on that. I'm, of course, going to tinker the numbers to make it look as good as possible, and then we'll go with that going forward. But like I said, in the last 4 weeks, the pyramid is 22-14 picking games. So maybe you could trust it. I don't know. But that being said, I'm going to take Philly -2.5 as my first pick this weekend. And then my other two are my other two biggest point differentials, which ironically are the two games that we also picked as well. Denver and Kansas City. Denver is a 3.5-point dog. I personally would have the spread at Denver plus 1.5. So I'm going to take Denver plus 3.5.
Sure.
And then we had Seattle, who is a 3.5-point dog. Seattle's my best team on the pyramid. And the Rams sit just one tier below. I would have the spread at Seattle plus 0.5. So essentially a pick 'em. I'm going to take Seattle plus 3.5. Those are my 3 ones. Philly minus 2.5 to Denver plus 3.5 and Seattle plus 3.5. Those are my 3 bets for the weekend. We will hope it's a good one. We hope we can get back on track and see a 3-0 week for the first time ever.
I believe.
But at this point, I wouldn't call it a best bet segment, even though it's still up there. We've kind of lost that one.
Well, so Sanders asked the same question pre-show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, it was a really bad week. But it was just 1 week, and you had 3 positive weeks the week before. So I was like, we'll give him another week to right the ship. And
Okay.
if you have another below 500 week, we will remove the best, and it'll just go back to your bets.
I'm completely fine with that.
Because bad weeks happen.
Absolutely.
You were on a run, and sure, it wasn't a good week. But I'm not going to remove best until there's a trend or a run of bad weeks, no matter how bad the week was.
I'm hoping we can see that going forward. The pyramid total through the season so far is 51 and 53, so just below 50%,
It's on the upswing. So.
which is that's obviously a lot better than 18 and 30. I don't know what the percentage would be there.
Sure.
Don't feel like calculating that. But those are my 3 picks for the weekend, and that concludes JP's best bets.
Sure. Well, anything else you want to toss out there before we get out of here?
No, unless, well, Tucker's not here anymore. I was going to ask if Tucker knows a way to get cheaper tickets, but no, I'm excited for this weekend of football.
Sure.
I'm going to a game in large part because with this ESPN YouTube TV stuff, I don't feel like doing the live stream stuff anymore, so I'm just going to go watch one of the best games this weekend.
I think that's a
Since
good
it's
call.
only an hour and a half away, and I'll spend some money there instead of spending money on ESPN Plus, which won't even help you. You need the ESPN app.
Yeah, it's terrible. I'm still so frustrated by it all. Sounded like things were getting better, and then a report came out today that Disney CFO was like, we're in this for the long haul. Like, we'll wait as long as we need to. And it's like, all right.
We'll wait too, honestly.
Yeah. I guess I can't wait because it's not. I guess I can because I've yet to buy anything else to watch games. So I think over time there will be a decrease in viewership.
Mm-hmm.
They pointed to some, like College Game Day had a record amount of viewers on Saturday, but I don't know if they're factoring in the fact that they like live streamed it. Like I think you could access it through Pat McAfee's YouTube channel or something
live
like
streaming for
that.
the second straight week. Whatever the ABC game was, the nightcap 2 weeks ago, they said that it was the most watched Week 9 primetime game on ABC since like 2008 or something.
Which it was.
So they've just like really cherry picked
Yeah.
most watched Week 9 game.
Yeah. And, I mean, you got to do what you can do. I'll just settle in and I guess enjoy my league pass and become an NBA fanatic until this gets solved, which I'm fine with. We got good hoops as always going on right now. Jokic was phenomenal last night.
Yep.
Curry was fantastic last night. De'Aaron Fox was terrible last night, but it happens. I was sad. I thought Willie Green was going to get fired today, the Pelicans head coach, because there was a report before the game that was like, basically he has to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
And he did not. Also, as always, Lenore Sellers-Gay is out for this weekend's matchup.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. That one, and then Lenore Sellers 4 Eyes is out for this weekend's matchup, which I thought was
like
pretty
that
funny.
one. That one's good.
And Curry's leaving Under Armour.
Surprising.
Yeah, I feel like that's... How
Very
often
surprising.
do people change shoe deals? Like,
That's
huge
somewhat
athletes.
I
Like, maybe I'm just, like, too young and, like, or not knowledgeable, but...
I don't know because
Especially this late in your career, I guess.
Jordan was always with Jordan. there was a big run where I don't know, like with Magic and Larry,
Sure.
they wore Converse for a really long time.
Crazy.
I don't know if they changed. Converse was what the biggest popular shoe was.
Yeah,
in the
everyone
80s.
wore it basically.
And so I don't know if they changed like once we got into the early '90s or not, with the rise of the Jordan brand. But I that's a really interesting. I did not.
I wonder if we'll get a report as to why that happened, or like
Yeah.
someone offered him way more money. He's about to sign a mega deal elsewhere.
He might.
But
Well, I wonder how much they own of like his brand of like
Sure.
you can't just like go and create Curry brand, I guess, because they have used his logo on the shoes
yeah,
before.
correct. Like, what's the creative rights there and everything, and the royalties and whatnot. I feel like that's a big blow for Under Armour, though. Like, that's
Absolutely.
probably their most popular athlete.
It 100% is. The only other one that I can think of off the top of my head has been Jordan Spieth for a long time, but he's fallen off in the golf game, and so that doesn't hit as much as it did. Cam Newton was Under Armour for a
Sure.
long time.
Maybe Under Armour's just kind of like looking to go a different direction in terms of like how they, in terms of like maybe they're less trying to sponsor athletes and more so just get into like the athletic wear game
Yeah.
in general. I don't know. De'Aaron Fox is an Under
shout
Armour
out
guy,
De'Aaron
I guess. Speaking about him. Let's see any big names. Alec Boehm, which is crazy. Freddie Freeman, but like baseball athletes don't really have the same pool that
Yeah.
other athletes do. Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis are probably a couple of their bigger names. You can
And-
take Curry off this list. His brother, though, Seth Curry, I guess is it's not a being like a nepo baby because it's your brother, but
Yeah.
like you can't tell me he's signing with Under Armour if Steph Curry is not his brother.
I would agree with you.
Kelsey Plum, Todd Pettiford,
Oh, okay.
interestingly enough.
I mean, maybe he had that with Auburn.
Yeah, Jarris Walker, Davion Mitchell. Not great here.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Last thing here. Jonathan Taylor. That's Justin Jefferson,
Jay Jetta.
Kyle Hamilton,
That's right.
which I'm not. No, there it is, Justin Jefferson. So they still got some people, but it definitely is. Curry's their biggest deal because also just the shoe game, like having an NBA athlete just feels so much bigger than having any other
yeah.
athlete. It just is a different thing completely.
1,000%. I think the only one that's comparable is Nike with golf.
Sure.
Like seeing Tiger Woods and Scotty Scheffler in Nike gear, at least as a golfer, makes me want to buy Nike polos, so I look like them.
Sure. It's iconic because even
Yeah.
the hat with the swoosh on it for golf is
100%.
unbelievably iconic. Like that's what you see Tiger in. So I think that's a good point. It's a great comparison.
But that is crazy.
Yeah, I think we can get on out of here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Thanks to all who tuned in. Thank you to Tucker for joining in the chat. We'll be back for y'all Sunday with Sanders back to recap this weekend. Hopefully we can announce that State is going bowling to kick
I
off
would
the
hope
show.
so.
The show. Hopefully A&M is still 10-0. Hopefully the Cougars get a big win at home to bounce back, and hopefully UVA and goes and wins at Duke in front of 2,000 people. That would encapsulate an ideal weekend, I would say. But yeah, see y'all then. Peace.
Later.